Hi there and welcome.
You're listening to Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm.
My name is Avantika, and I'm a researcher exploring animal consciousness, environmental sustainability, and planetary health. I want to help bring animal perspectives to the table and transform our relationship with the natural world.
And I'm Barbara. I'm an animal communicator and retired veterinarian. My true passion is exploring the hearts and souls of animals and helping people come to a much deeper understanding of who the animals truly are at their core.
This podcast is for anyone who loves animals and nature and has an interest in their own personal and spiritual development. We'll bring you powerful conversations with fascinating people about animal and nature sentience, consciousness, and communication.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of love, respect, understanding, and care for the fellow beings who share our beautiful Mother Earth with us.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm. This episode that you're going to hear today has been published in April 2026, but this conversation is actually one that happened between Barbara and I in October 2025. It took us some time to edit it and put it together for all of you, so it's going to be a little bit like going back in time. But essentially, we had just had a very eventful and busy summer in 2025. And in this conversation, we are coming together after that busy summer and we are touching base, catching up, and reflecting on our experiences. So we hope you enjoy hearing this conversation, this very candid conversation between Barbara and I, just talking about what we had been up to. Barbara talks about her travel adventures through Canada for a few months, and I talk about some of my first fieldwork experiences that were part of my PhD. We hope you enjoy. This conversation is just going to be a really candid, laid back conversation. What we're going to do today is actually just hang out, Barbara and I. We're going to talk, we're going to catch up, we're going to reflect on what the past few months have been like, and we thought we might as well just record the conversation so you guys can hear what we're talking about. Right, Barbara?
Right! I'm excited. Avantika and I always have such a good time together. We really do. So we'd like to share it with you. I'll start. I'm going to ask some spontaneous questions for Avantika to see what's going on, because it's been a busy summer. The last time we recorded, probably a lot of people haven't heard it, we were together in Canada. And I made a drive up there and stayed at a house. I was pet sitting at the time. And Avantika came from Belgium. I came from the US. Avantika came from Belgium. And we stayed in this house together for 10 days, and it was fantastic. So tell us what's happened since then. Where do you start?
Yeah, well, first of all, that feels like years ago. That feels like it was so long ago. That was July 2025. We're now in October. So a lot has happened. I think I was getting ready to, well, first of all, we had a really beautiful gathering with some friends of ours who came from different parts of BC and Alberta, which are Canadian provinces, also different parts of Canada. And that was a really lovely gathering. And that was actually the kickoff to my fieldwork period. So just to back up a little bit, in case you don't know, I started my PhD in February 2025, and I was in Belgium from February till the end of June. And then it was time for me to basically start my fieldwork. And what the fieldwork really involved was, and still involves because it's still ongoing, is spending time with people who communicate with animals and to be with them, spend time with them, learn from them, understand what they're doing, to participate basically in, their day-to-day activities. And so that's been part of my field work. So this trip and this time that we spent together, Barbara, was just a really nice kind of starting point for me to come back to Canada, to get grounded back on Canadian soil, which I really missed. And yeah, it was just a really nice way to kind of switch gears from like a lot of academic conversations and being at the university and doing a lot of reading articles, reading books, talking, a lot of theoretical stuff. It was just a really nice opportunity to come and like be with people and to go on hikes together, to spend time with the animals, the canines that were in our company. And so it was just really nice. It was a nice way to start my field work. So basically, after I left Alberta and after I saw you, Barbara, I made my way to Quebec. And how I got to Quebec is a whole other story. It was quite, I'll say, serendipitous and unexpected, and kind of just things kind of fell into place. One thing I've learned in my life is when things happen like that, when they happen quickly, they happen kind of effortlessly, that I feel like I'm on the right track, that I feel like, okay, things are moving in the right direction. So I kind of went with the flow. I have a friend who lives in northern Quebec in this small, remote, rural Cree community. So it's an Canadian Indigenous community. And I basically, we had a conversation about me coming there and spending some time there. My goal with my Canadian fieldwork period was to spend time in an Indigenous community, meet people, spend time with people, to really get perspective, to learn about their relationships with the land, their relationships with nature, with animals, in a very respectful way, coming in there really to get to know them and to build like long-term relationships, and to see if anyone there would be willing to basically talk to me about this topic. So I got to Quebec and I got settled in. I was in a town with about 900 people. So probably the smallest place that I've ever been in my life. And it was just so quiet and peaceful. And I really felt like I was somewhere completely different. The way that the community interacts, the way that they move, the way that they do things. It just felt like such an honor to be part of this community and to show up in different events, show up at different places, to help out with different tasks, with different community initiatives that were happening, and just start to get to know people. So my job really was to try to find one or two or three people who would be open to talking to me about this kind of like intuitive way of communicating with animals. So it took some time. I think there's some resistance among some community members about researchers and outsiders coming in, and rightly so. They've been through so much, and that was one of the first things that I started learning when I got there, that it's really important for me to understand the history that they've been through, specifically this community, because all Indigenous communities across Canada have had different experiences and different histories. So that was kind of one of the first things I did, was to like really ground myself in learning about the history. And so I slowly started to meet people, and it was amazing. I met some incredible people. I spent time with one woman there. Most of my time I spent with one woman who is a ceremonialist. She's a traditional knowledge keeper, and she's a ceremonialist. So what that means is that she conducts or leads ceremonies in the community. And so it's a very spiritual role. It's the role of a healer. It's the role of someone who conducts these ceremonies to be a place where people can come and heal, where they can get answers, where they can connect with the spirit world. And so she kind of facilitates this process. So I met her. I told her a little bit about who I am, why I'm here, and instantly just felt a lot of resonance and a lot of like, it was just a heart to heart connection. One of those people who you meet, and, I didn't feel like it was my first time meeting her. Felt like I'd known her for a long, long time. And I basically just asked her, if I could spend more time with her and accompany her wherever she was going, whatever she was doing. So she was very kind and very open to me hanging around. So yeah, I tagged along wherever she went for the next little while. And it was amazing. I learned a lot. To kind of sum it up, I feel like it was a very profound experience. I feel very privileged that I got to do that. And I learned about how someone like her, with the background and upbringing and experiences and teachings that she has, how someone like her, what communicating with animals means to her and how that shows up for her in her day-to-day life. I think what this means and how this fits into what I'm studying, I think that's going to take me time to like unpack, because we had many conversations about all kinds of different things. And I realized that, this topic that we're studying, IIC, intuitive interspecies communication, isn't just one thing. And I think we already knew that, because I already know that it shows up differently for different people. How people get into that space, how people receive information, how they have that exchange with animals, it's so different for each person. And going into this community and spending time there, I realized even more so the different ways in which this can happen and the different dimensions that this, and the different contexts that this can show up in. So I think it just really helped expand my understanding. It helped me expand, the lenses through which I've been thinking about animal communication, because I've been mostly learning about it and talking about it in one context, which is, kind of this more like a professional animal communicator, who's called into certain situations to help communicate with specific animals. Well, I got to kind of explore it in different dimensions and different contexts where people are not necessarily communicating with one animal, but they're communicating with all wildlife around them, or with a certain archetype of an animal, like the bear or the moose, or, through their dreams, through their visions, through different spiritual journeys they're going on. So it was, yeah, it was pretty wonderful. It was profound. It was magical, I would say. Even I feel like I learned a lot about myself too in that process.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you brought all this up because, as you know, I've been communicating with whole species or groups of animals for a long time. And as I've gone on, what I've come to see is just like you said, when we say animal communication or intuitive interspecies communication, it's not one thing. And I'm realizing for myself, it's so much broader, and maybe even the word communication isn't enough. It's connection, it's communion, and it doesn't have to be in words, it doesn't have to be any certain way. I think maybe it's just that loving connection that's it's at the heart of all of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then you went on, right? You went back home for a while and you want to talk about the rest of the trip?
Yeah, it's been like sometimes I have a hard time remembering where I am and what time of the year it is and where I've been, where I'm going, because I've been moving around quite a bit. But yeah, basically after Quebec, I made a pit stop at home, which is in Toronto, for like 6 hours. Um, had a chance to see my family very quickly. And then I actually went to British Columbia for a bit, back to BC, where I met an Indigenous woman there who communicates with animals. And I connected with her while I was in Quebec virtually. And I felt that, yeah, I felt that it was important for me to go and spend some time with her. It was just a few days, but I really wanted to go and learn about, her world and how this shows up in her day-to-day life. And that was quite amazing as well. So I had a short trip in BC, but I got to go and spend time with her and also spend some time with some horses.
Oh,
And
great.
after that, I was able to go home again for about a week. And this was a really good opportunity for me to kind of unwind, unpack. I feel like my brain was just saturated at this point with so much because I had been, I'd experienced so many different things, had been talking, like, I love to talk, but there was a point at which I was like, okay, I need to like just kind of rein it in now, and I need some time to like process what I've been talking about, what the conversations I've been having. So that was really good to go home for a bit and spend time with my dogs, my cat, my family, and just kind of switch gears a little bit. And now I'm in Belgium for a couple of weeks just to do some paperwork, and I'm heading over to India in a few days.
Amazing. Amazing. All you've been doing and are doing, and wowie, pretty
Yeah, so
impressive.
when people ask me like, oh, like where are you headed next, or where did you what did you do this summer? Sometimes I'm like, okay, how much time do you have? Because and how much detail do you want? Because it's yeah, I'll say like it's been, as been saying from the beginning, it's been honestly the greatest honor of my life that I get to do this work. I feel so lucky and privileged that I get to do this and have conversations that I love having and meet people who have these very interesting lives and have so much to teach me. Um, I'm also learning that, I'm also learning how to take care of myself, and with all this movement and traveling, that can be hard sometimes. And even just staying grounded, and it can be pretty disorienting. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, it takes me a few seconds to remember where I am physically. So that's just something that I'm learning how to balance, along with everything else.
What wonderful life lessons, huh? That's amazing.
Mhm.
So what's in India? What are you going to do in India?
So I'm getting like my seatbelt on for India because I think it's gonna be quite an adventure. I'm going there to spend time with a professional animal communicator. She's in a city called Pune, which is close to Mumbai in central India, and I'm going to be spending, yeah, 2 months with her, participating in her workshops, um, all kinds of adventures lined up ahead. She has a residency workshop that she does where she takes people in her advanced animal telepathic animal communication workshop into like a national park in India, which has a tiger reserve in it, and so I'm going to be joining them for that experience and learning from her there, and hopefully I'll be able to observe her as she shows me what she does day to day, and hopefully I'll have a chance to learn from her and do some traveling with her, and yeah, it's gonna be fun.
You're going to be an expert animal communicator by the time you get done
Um,
with it. Do you know it?
it's interesting because I always think about that whenever I go, whenever I'm back with my animals, or every day I do try to check in with them. I feel like it'd be really silly for me to be studying this and spending my time learning about this and not actually applying it. But every time I do, I realize that I don't do it enough. So I'm also finding in my life that I'm balancing the roles of a researcher and someone who's actually doing it because, sometimes when I spend time with our oldest dog, Simba, I know he's looking at me and saying like, I'm waiting, you know, I'm waiting for you to communicate with me more. And I have to really remind myself of that sometimes when I'm like working on a paper or have my like head deep in some book or okay, let's be honest, I'm not reading nearly as much as I should be, but deep in thought about something or researching something or whatever. Um, it's always at the back of my mind that like I would actually really love to be out there more, like practicing this. And, it doesn't even involve going anywhere. It doesn't have to. But yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if I'll be an expert at doing it, but I'm certainly gonna try. Gonna
Well,
try.
if it makes you feel any better for any reason, I rarely communicate with my own animals.
Mhm.
Number one, I think it's harder because it's harder to be objective. But
Yeah,
number two, we've got such a deep connection anyway.
yeah,
And I think from my perspective, animal communication, like we talked about, is not just having conversations and words. It's about the connection. So maybe it's not even necessary to be communicating with Simba all the time, you know? Don't lay that one on yourself.
I know. And I find actually what I feel when I check in with him is he wants to know where I am,
Yeah,
like on a
yeah.
map. He's like, show me where you are. So I
On a
find,
map? On
yeah,
a
like
whoa.
he knows where, the world map, but it's kind of like, show me where you are in relation to me, kind of thing. Like, how
Uh-huh.
far are you? That's what I feel, at least. That's what I get quite often when I check in with him, is he wants to know, like, where are you? Like, tell me where you are. Show me, where are you? So, uh,
Yeah.
so that's been interesting. And that's actually very much part of this PhD as well, is to actually practice and is to actually learn, is to actually do it. So I should be writing notes about all of that. That's what my supervisor would say. Yeah.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and I want to go in your suitcase and do all these things. It sounds like so great. So
Yeah.
I wish you so much um, so many blessings and a lot of grace and ease and joy and peace and all of that. You're going to have such a great time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's already been quite the journey, and I will just say, in the spirit of being vulnerable and open and authentic, that like I think I mentioned this before as well. Like one of the hardest parts for me of this journey has been like, knowing that there are things happening at home that I can't control or can't help with. And so, I'm just really grateful that it's something like this that's keeping me motivated and going, and that this is what my work is about right now. Because if it was anything else, I think it'd be really hard to deal with that. That's just a lesson that's continuing in my life right now. It has been for the past few years, is about surrendering and asking for help, asking for guidance, and really just like doing my best and letting go of expectations and outcomes. And so yeah, so that's the kind of motto I try to go into all of these things with. Yeah, because it's, there are moments that are hard for sure. It's also the greatest gift ever. And I know that there's important lessons to learn, from this whole experience.
Yeah. And as you grow from this, I'm sure the rest of your life, you'll use what you've learned these few years, you know? These are life lessons, you know? Good for you. Good for you. And I'm proud of you, just as your friend. I'm really, really proud of you for all you're doing. It's very wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I would definitely take you on. I have a little bit of extra space in my luggage.
I think I'm a little too big and too heavy for your trip.
Like I appreciate our conversations because I really wanted to share on social media. Like that was just something I've really wanted to do once I started my PhD. And I tried, but there's some moments, especially like this past summer, being in an Indigenous community, being in Quebec, there were just so many things that I'm like, I don't even know what to say about what I'm experiencing right now. So having a space to kind of unpack some of that and talk about some of that is really nice because I do want to share and I do want to, you know, yeah, I want to share what that experience was like, but it's hard to do sometimes in little snippets.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So I get to live vicariously through you, and I'm sure other people do as well, you know? So it's a gift to us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of living vicariously, I know your summer was also very eventful.
Oh my
You
gosh.
you decided earlier this year that you would pack up your stuff for a few months and head over to Canada for like 3 months, was it?
Yeah,
For
three
three
months.
months with Ari, your dog. And tell us, Barbara, like why did you decide to embark on this journey in the first place?
It was so clear to me. We were talking with a friend of ours. Avantika and I had been in a group with several other women for 2 years. And we were going through a book together. We would meet once a month on the full moon. And we were going through, well, two different books over time by Jamie Sams, who's an Indigenous Native American First Nations woman who wrote these profound spiritual books. And we went through them together. It was pretty deep conversations. One of the women lived in Alberta and she was pretty remote. I found out she was between Banff and Calgary, and just beautiful country. And the reason I wanted to go, I just wanted to be immersed in nature and the natural world. I wanted to find that beauty and peace, which I did find there. It was just so amazing to be amongst all the green and the trees and the wildlife, and um, so peaceful and quiet, you know. That's why I went. And secondarily, I wanted to work on my book. I'm writing a memoir. And I thought, oh, yeah, every day I'm going to go sit outside and I'm going to work on my book. And I'll get mostly done with this book that I've been working on for like 30 years. And well, I got maybe a week or two's worth of writing in there. That was it. There was too much else going on. But the main thing was just finding that beauty and peace in nature. And as a result, something in me shifted, I think. And I
Mm.
think of beloved Jane Goodall, who Avantika and I, we saw her last year for her 90th birthday. We went to Vancouver and she was so incredible. And I'll never forget what she said one time when we were together. I was at the Aspen, Colorado Ideas Festival, which is a big deal. A lot of big name people there. And I was just her liaison, helping her with this and that. So I followed her around for a couple days and she was incredible. And someone asked her, how do you stay so calm? You're doing such intensive work. She was traveling 300 days a year till she died. And she was helping animals, helping people, doing constantly working. How do you stay so peaceful amidst all this? And she said, well, I lived in the forest. I lived in the rainforest for all those years, and I carry it with me. And so I feel like I have the opportunity now to carry that place with me inside of me. And when I get all stressed out, which I don't do as often anymore, I can just go there and hold that. So that's why I went. Yeah. And the journey to get there was long. It was a long drive. It was about 1,000 miles up. And I'm older. I'm not, my body isn't what it used to be when I was 30. So I can drive 200 miles a day. And that's how I planned it, 200 miles a day. And then I would stop at a hotel or with friends. I stayed with a number of friends along the way, which was wonderful. And I got there and landed. Um, I stayed with our friend Peg for a week, and then I went to the place where Avantika and I shared for 10 days. I stayed there for almost a month. It was this gorgeous, gorgeous big home that a family had lived in, and they were all in Europe for a month. Oh my God, I just loved it. And the surrounding area was so beautiful. They had a large piece of property. They had a little cabin on part of the property, and I would take these hikes every day. And they had a garden and a greenhouse that I took care of, and a cat. And Avantika was so great because this cat, Nell, was so timid and shy, and she would avoid me, certainly avoid my dog and everything. And Avantika stayed in her own separate bedroom, and Nell would come in at night and visit Avantika. And from then on, I got closer to Nell, and we got to be really sweet friends. Uh,
Yeah.
but that place, I don't know, didn't you think that was a magical place? I just loved it there.
Yeah, it really was. I definitely didn't get to spend enough time there. Um,
Yeah.
but for sure, it was such a beautiful place. And I know just like I think the day after I left, you had a family of moose who came
Oh my
and
God.
visited. We were
I had
waiting for that.
heard I had heard from the people that lived there that the moose came into the yard and they had a salt lick that you could see from the windows in the house. But I hadn't seen any moose. And then we had all this gathering with all these people and we were in and out. And then after Avantika left and it got quieter, the moose started coming in the mornings to the salt lick. Oh my God, I was so excited. The first one was a younger one. I don't know. I think it was a young male. And then this mama moose and her two babies came, and they stayed there for quite a while. It was so wonderful. And then this huge bull moose came one day, and I was just ecstatic. I was so excited to see these moose. Yeah. So that was definitely a highlight of my trip. Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay, speaking of highlights, I was going to ask you, were there any parts of the trip that were really memorable for you or really stayed with you? Anything that, was your favorite place or favorite thing that you did?
Well, certainly seeing the moose was a highlight. At one point, a mountain lion walked right by the you didn't know that? A
No.
mountain lion. Oh, I was sure I'd told you. Yeah, one morning or one evening, there was a sunroom with big windows and a door and everything, and I was walking from the kitchen toward the sunroom, and I saw this shape walking by right next to the windows and the door. And it was a lion. It was a
Oh my
cougar.
God.
Just walking slowly right by the house. And I was like, oh my God. I didn't see her head. I think it was probably a female or a young male because it was a little smaller than a huge one. But oh my God, I was so excited. And nobody had ever, in that house or nearby, had ever seen a lion that close. So it was really a gift.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and I'll just say this because here we are, but I had had a relationship with a cougar many years before that I absolutely adored this guy. And He was he was in a cage when I worked for California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I was working there, and every evening after everyone left, I would hang out with this cat, with this cougar. And I got to a point with him where he would come right next to me, and I even got to pet him, pet his paws through the bars. And oh God, I love that guy. His name was Stockton. Eventually he was released, but that's another story. But I've had this profound connection with Stockton for years. And when I was doing some inner work and going through stuff, I felt his presence. And a couple days later, I saw this cougar. And I know that this cougar was sent because of my connection with Stockton. It was like a validation, a confirmation of the connection. And it shifted something for me because even though I've been doing this work for more than 30 years, I hate to say it, it's a long time, it took me to another level of trust, of believing, because I've been so trained to and conditioned to be skeptical, to need proof, to think all these things. You need double-blind studies for everything. But seeing this cougar in the flesh, and nobody in this area had ever had that experience, it was like, okay, this energy stuff is for real. And my connection with the cougars through Stockton helped manifest this whole thing, and it gave me a whole lot more trust. It really did. It gave me a lot more faith in the animal connection, communion, communication. It really did. So that was a highlight. Another highlight was I went to a powwow, and oh my God, I've been to powwows. I've tracked Native American stuff for years, but this powwow was special. It was huge. And there were people from tribes all over the place from Canada. And it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. There was so much drumming and chanting and singing, and the dancing was absolutely amazing. These people from different tribes in just beautiful, colorful, gorgeous costumes, dancing their hearts out. And I just got swept away in the beauty of it. It was really, really an amazing experience. And then outside, there were tons of RVs where people stayed and a lot of teepees. I had never seen that before to that degree. So that was really fun. And after realizing the history that these people have had and how hard it's been, like you alluded to, Avantika, it was quite profound for me. So those are some of the highlights of my trip.
Wow, what an adventure.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really
It's
was.
it's really, I think it's really I know we both had totally different summers and we're doing different things, but I think, there's something really interesting that can unfold when you really spend time somewhere, and not just like go in and out of a place or go to visit a place for a week or, when you really, and, even then I feel like my time there wasn't even enough. Like I could have stayed there for so much longer and there was still so much left to learn and to do and to experience. But I think it's just, you get a different kind of an appreciation for like the life there, the rhythm there. There's a different way that you can kind of become part of that.
Yeah.
That's very different than when you just travel to a place and see the things and do the things and then you leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking back, had I known all I would have to go through to get there and back, I don't know if I would have done it. But yeah, just being there for all that time and every morning going for a walk up this road, maybe I'd see a person, maybe not, for an hour and a half, and just being immersed in the whole situation and seeing those glorious mountains. The mountains were just astounding, at the place where we stayed.
Mhm.
Um, you could have a view of those mountains of Banff. It was just,
Yeah.
and the
Beautiful.
sunsets. Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
sunsets were
Yeah.
gorgeous. So yeah. And
You
then
know,
coming home was interesting. It took
Mm-hmm.
me, I allowed a long time to come home, maybe close to 3 weeks traveling
Mm-hmm.
and driving. Long drive. I realized just the trip home was 1,500 miles. And I stayed at friends' places for part of that time, which was wonderful to have that opportunity to be with these people, and stayed in a motel for days with Ari and on Whidbey Island, which was fun. And I got to spend time with a classmate of mine from vet school. But the driving was long, and I would have to stop every night and stay at a different place and different place and different place. Finally coming home I was really happy to be home. Really happy to be home, and Ari was really happy to be home and be with his friends. So overall it was truly a great adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you said if you you just said that if you knew like all that it would involve and that it would take, you might not do it again. But for anyone who's listening, who's like, wants to do something but is being held back because of, I don't know, the whole variety of things that kind of stop us from doing things, including age too, Do you have any?
Yeah, I'll just be honest. I'm 74. I'm going to be 75 next year in March. So I'm not a spring chicken anymore, although I like to think of myself as one. But it gets harder. It gets harder. My sleep requirements, my food requirements are different. My body's not always in tip-top shape like I would want it to be, but I did it, and we can do it. I think it's just a mindset. And I've realized that for years, like, living in Africa for a year years ago. That wasn't easy either. But the rewards are so worth it. It can be life-changing in a good way.
What were the rewards for you this time?
Well, one of the rewards was just knowing I did it.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
did it.
Yeah.
Um, but also, like I said, this time in nature was so precious for me. I've just wanted to be immersed in nature more and more, and I was. And it just fed something deep in my soul to have that experience, and I know I'll carry that with me. Um, and I did a lot of inner work along the way. Things came up. I
Mhm.
realized that even though I've done a lot of personal growth work, spiritual work for many, many years, stuff comes up. I get triggered by stuff, and I can either fall into it and say, oh my God, my life is miserable. How am I going to get through this? And become the victim and all that kind of stuff, which is really easy to do, and I can do that easily. Or I can say, okay, what's the blessing here? What's the gift in this? What do I have to learn? What is it in me that was triggered that I can now take a really honest look at and do something about? And so some things like that really came up for me, and I realized that this process of healing never ends. This process of growth never ends. We're always evolving, and it's up to us to take advantage of opportunities that might seem like terrible events, but can also be opportunities for growth. So that was another lesson I took from it.
Yeah, that that's so true. And I'm thinking back now to like what I'm walking away with, over this whole past year of different adventures and things I've been doing. I think one of the things that traveling and especially when you're staying with other people and meeting other people staying in their homes, you get to see different ways that people are living. And I think that was just such a blessing, continues to be such a blessing for me because I think it's really easy to, I'll just speak for myself and my life, like to grow up a certain way in a certain environment, a certain community with certain expectations or certain structures, ways of doing things, ways of living, even lifestyles, values, all of that. And then when you step out of that and you see how other people are living, where they're living, what they have in their homes, what they're spending their time doing. It gives you perspective. I've learned a lot about myself in that process. And I think the other thing for me too is, learning to ask the animals for help. I think it was like something I was not really thinking about that much, but I've learned now in the time that I spent with the people in Quebec, with the people I met in BC, that there's so much that the spirit world can help us with, including specific animals who are here to help us and guide us and support us. And that's really been something that I've been reminding myself of, because it helps me to, not feel alone ever. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking for help. So that's also just something I wanted to bring up. That's been a gift over, the experiences in the last few months is tuning into that a little bit more and building that relationship, because day to day, you can feel like you have things to figure out and to do, but beyond that, there's actually a lot of support, and we can kind of lean on those sources of support when we need it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said with Stockton, but I've got a lot of different animals that I connect with and other kinds of guides. We have so much support that we don't even realize, we just have to ask for help.
Mhm.
And the other thing you talked about was staying in different beds and different houses. And,
Yeah, you've been doing that too.
yeah, I think about that. And it's really true. Staying with different people in different environments, you can learn so much. And
Yeah.
I love to travel, and living in other places with different cultures. How amazing is that, what you can learn from these people? And the interaction, not with just with animals, but with other people too, of different regions, different cultures, different belief systems. It's you can't help but grow from that and learn from that and be inspired by that. So yeah, it's great.
Mhm. Well,
Well, I think we've covered it. What do you think?
I think so. I think we talked about a lot, and yeah, is there anything else you wanted to share, Barbara, about the past few months, what you've been up to?
I just want to say, I'm going to cry here, how grateful I am to you with all that you're doing. And you're always doing stuff and all that you go through. You've continued to do this podcast with me. I didn't think it was possible. You know that. I said before you started this program in Belgium, I said, there's no way we can keep doing this podcast. There's no way. You're going to be too busy. And you do the majority of the work. You do the editing and the posting and the social media and all this stuff that I don't do and I'm not very good at. So I'm just extremely grateful.
Well, I will say there have been moments where I was like, oh, okay, we're not going to get to release something this month, It's been hard at times. Yeah, there have been moments where I'm like, okay, it is challenging, but I think that this podcast and this community gives me so much inspiration. It's also a place where I get to think and reflect and unpack things and process things. And I really, really appreciate that, because I've learned about myself in starting this academic journey that reading things is just sometimes not the way that I learn. I learn through conversation, I learn through dialogue, I learn through sharing and exchanging. And this space gives me, yeah, this gives me a space to do that, a place to do that. So I'm
Yeah,
really grateful, and we're doing it. So
we're doing it, and
we're
it's
doing it.
fun. I always have fun. I love our conversations with, we've met some fascinating people, that are
Yeah,
doing such good work,
yeah.
and I
And
just enjoyed it.
I'll also say that like we've received some wonderful emails over the years of people who
Yeah,
have found this podcast who've like stumbled upon it randomly, or someone recommended it to them. And those emails are just
yeah,
like, we love them, and we love hearing about how you found us, what conversations you're enjoying. Like it makes us really, really happy, because we are just doing this out of the love for animals and for this community that we're building, that we're part of. So yeah, we're just an email away. So write to us,
yeah,
even if you don't have anything specific to say, just say hi, because we love
really.
hearing from you. And yeah, it's always really heartwarming to connect with the people who are on the other side of these conversations listening to us. And yeah, we thank you so much for your time today. We thank you for tuning into this conversation and hearing our updates, and joining us as Barbara and I just, reflected and talked about what's been going on. And we thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you from me too. It just warms my heart, our hearts, to hear from you and know that we're not just talking into outer space, that people are actually hearing it and benefiting from it. That's really joyful. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And tell us also like what you're up to, because I love hearing about, like, I will just say someone emailed us recently telling us that she's starting her master's degree in animal science. If you're listening, you know who you are. And she's interested in focusing on intuitive interspecies communication. I mean, that just makes me want to jump for joy. Like, really, I cannot, like, it's one of the things, honestly, that I'm looking forward to in the future, and that I would love to be part of building and contributing to, is like more people wanting to study this, and more people wanting to like research this. So whatever you're doing with in this topic, if you're just curious, or if you want to research it, or if you're someone who's practicing and learning, let us know what you're up to. It's going to make us really, yeah, happy to know who's tuning in.
Yeah, and for me, it's not just about people who want to learn interspecies communication. For me, it's people deepening their love for animals and wanting to do something about it. In other words, take some kind of action, like treat your animals better, or volunteer somewhere, or donate to a cause that's helping animals, something. And I just believe that what you love, you will pay attention to, you will honor, and you will respect. So for me, it's the communication is fabulous, but also there's more. It's mostly about that love that we share with and for animals, and letting that be part of your life. So
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you so much. And on that note, we will end with a blessing for the animals.
We'd like to end this podcast by taking just a moment to be quiet. And we give thanks and blessings to these amazing animals that we share our lives with. They give us so much and ask for so little in return. We hope that you can keep the animals and all living beings in your heart and in your mind as you go about your day. Thank you so much for being here with us today.